Everyone. Have to check. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to everybody that's joining us via the live stream. I want to begin, as we always do, by acknowledging that we're on Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. I am very pleased that today Council approved a number of measures intended to better help protect the safety and the well-being of the residents that we all serve. In particular, I appreciated Council's strong support for a declaration of a state of local emergency. This is being done in extraordinary circumstances to ensure that the resources and the authority for the public services is there when and if necessary in the coming weeks, should it be required in order to better protect the health and the well-being of our residents. I want to applaud the leadership and the efforts of Jay Shaw and our emergency management team and our public service, as well as my council colleagues who strongly supported the declaration today. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have on that or some of these other matters after we've made our opening remarks. I'm very pleased that Council approved an unprecedented relief plan to ease the financial burden of COVID-19 on property and business taxpayers today. This is something that has not been done, at least as far as we know in our city's history, and does provide a 3-month easing for those that are not able to pay their business and property taxes. Of course, all others that are able to pay, we would urge you to continue to pay your property and your business taxes. It goes a long way to help ensure that we have the resources that are necessary to ensure, among other things, public safety measures can be implemented, clean, safe drinking water, water and waste removal measures can be ongoing. And so I want to thank everybody for doing your part. That's one way you can do your part, is to make sure you're providing those resources to the municipal government so we can protect our community. I also want to acknowledge that Council today, again in an unprecedented move, supported a motion to allow for electronic meetings of Council and committees over the next 120 days. This is, again, to ensure that we're doing our best to make sure that we're as nimble. We can use the technology that's afforded to us and that's being used by businesses around the world right now to make sure that the business of government can continue. That business continuity is extremely important, and so is the oversight of members of Council for the work that's ongoing here at the City of Winnipeg. And so the ability for us to meet electronically is something that I appreciate the support today of my council colleagues to ensure that we can move over the next 120 days. This is extremely important, especially as it relates to procurement, materials management practices, to make sure that construction projects are not unduly delayed. This is important not just for keeping our city moving, but also to make sure our economy continues to move. The City of Winnipeg funds a lot of activities that are delivered by the private sector, and ensuring that we can continue to do our jobs allows us to make sure that so many in various industries, including construction, can continue doing their jobs. I understand that the provincial government today released significant plans to provide relief. I'm not able to provide any detailed comment at this time. We learned of the details via Twitter during the council meeting, and so I can answer questions afterwards if you have, as best I can with the limited information that we have about those plans. And maybe with that, I'll turn it over to Jay Shaw for an update, and then we'll open it up to questions for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon. I'm Jay Shaw, the Assistant Chief of Emergency Management for the City of Winnipeg. Later today, Transit will be having discussions with Amalgamated Transit Union regarding spring transit service. The spring transit schedule launches on April 12th and will include the introduction of Blue along Stage 2 of the Southwest Transitway. As we've stated before, and as the public has witnessed, transit ridership has decreased significantly over the past few weeks. We continue to ensure that riders have enough room on the bus to ensure appropriate social distancing and that is in place. But we also need to prepare for any constraints that we may experience during the current COVID-19 crisis. We are exploring a number of options for the spring schedule, which could include a move to an enhanced Saturday service on weekdays, which would be Saturday service with some feeder service added. Over the coming days, we will be looking at options and having discussions with Council and determine our next steps. Key in these decisions will be the health and safety of our transit operators and our transit riders. There are a couple of other items I'd like to note. Effective tomorrow, we are allowing our partners along the city's skywalk system to close their portion of the skywalk. Most of the businesses along the skywalk are not currently open to the public, and our partners had been asking for this step to be taken. In addition, as we had indicated yesterday, we are reminding residents to only use Winnipeg Transit for essential trips such as grocery shopping or getting to work. Thank you. We can take your questions at this time.
So we will start off today with Joyanne from the Winnipeg Free Press.
I'm just wondering about something you just said. So the skywalk being closed, does that mean completely? Does that mean specific portions of it? How extensive is that?
So, great question. What we're hearing from the business community is that some of the ownership groups that have authority over those skywalks are asking for a permission to close. There are some cause and effects of this. Some of the skywalk systems don't allow for proper social distancing. In consultation, we supported those business efforts, and we've allowed them to make those decisions as the city is involved with those actions. So we're allowing that action to take place.
So would that actually close the full skywalk then, or are there exceptions where it would stay open?
At this time, there's still going to be sections of the skywalk that will be open, and we need to assess as we move forward to be able to make sure that we're meeting the demands of business and meeting the demands of this COVID-19 crisis so that we can protect our citizens and make sure that we're doing the right thing. So daily assessments, and we'll take a look at what we need to do next to make sure that we're following those basic principles.
All right, we'll go to Eric from Global. Eric from Global.
Sorry, I was on mute. 1 second. So, Jay, just on the transit question at large, I know there's been efforts to implement social distancing on city buses. Can you tell me a bit about how that's been enforced, or has it been a matter of the honor system?
I think it's a little bit of both. First of all, Winnipeggers are fully engaged in understanding what's required of them through physical and social distancing. And our transit riders have been seeing messages on transit buses. They've seen the messages that we're putting out in terms of be helpful, be safe, stay home when required, only use transit for essential trips, for groceries and going to work and medical appointments and things along that line. Our transit operators and our transit supervisors are engaging with our riders. Ridership is down quite a lot, and right now there has really been not a lot of concern in terms of physical distancing on the routes. And as we move forward, we're going to keep messaging and having discussions.
That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff from CTV.
Hi, as my learned colleague had asked about yesterday from CBC, I believe, are you aware of a health and safety complaint with regards to sandbagging and social distancing?
Jeff, great question. Yeah, I do believe we received a complaint and that our safety officers are taking a look at it. I don't have the details or the specifics of what the complaint was. What I can tell you is that incident in the south end of Winnipeg where we had to do some sandbagging was was a really good measure that the public service took to be able to protect someone's property. And we want to continue to communicate with all of our members of the public service and our public works team to make sure that their voices are being heard, because we understand that there's fear out there and there's concerns. And for that particular incident, we're going to do whatever's required to make sure that folks feel safe and that they have the appropriate knowledge and understanding and get their questions answered. There's a lot of information out there around COVID-19, and we want to make sure that we're providing the best information to our city employees. And I keep repeating it, but the health and safety and wellness of our employees and our citizens is what my number one concern is. And the public service really stepped up yesterday to be able to help save property in the city of Winnipeg.
Another totally different topic, Mayor Bowman. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the result of the police pension arbitration was contained in that financial report that the council was discussing today. Is the city planning on appealing that? I would presume would that go to Queen's Bench or somewhere? Is the city planning on appealing that, or is this the end of things?
You know what, Jeff, I don't have any update from the last time a question was asked. The focus has been on COVID-19 response in the last week, and I expect that that's going to continue for the foreseeable future. We haven't had an opportunity to review it in any detail or be briefed about it. It was one of many different items that were referenced in the report today. Just so that council and the public have an appreciation for some of the financial risks going forward. And those are all going to warrant, in many cases, decisions. And so once I've had an opportunity and council's had an opportunity to be properly briefed, we'll let you know and we'll go from there. But right now there's nothing pending on that matter. We are really focused on COVID-19 response.
All right, we'll go to Jonas from Citi.
Hey guys, this is for Mayor Bowman. Quick question regarding a comment you made saying that a 4-year budget plan gives you flexibility moving forward. I guess, can you just elaborate as to how this will help when you're looking at deficits of tens of millions of dollars?
Yeah, I mean, the global pandemic is something that's affecting governments across Canada and around the world. I've been in regular dialogue with Canada's big city mayors, speaking with Mayor Nenshi and Mayor Crombie in Mississauga, Mayor Tory in Toronto, and many other communities from coast to coast to coast. We're all dealing with the same impacts right now. Low revenues as a result of many city services and revenue generators being negatively affected, but also expenses, needing to make sure that we're doing what's necessary in these circumstances to protect the health and well-being of our community. And so, the efforts of a multi-year balanced budget are important, because had we not balanced 4 years, had we not balanced next year's budget in our budget deliberations this year, we would be looking at well over $100 million of a structural operating deficit that we would currently be working on to balance in the next 9 months. So we've done that heavy lifting. So we are beginning our budgetary deliberations when they formally begin with balance for the next 3 years. And so we don't start with having to look up a $100 million plus hill to then get to the point where we can deal with the effects of COVID-19. We can start with a balance to begin with, and even that is not going to be easy. I mean, you could see in the report today and the risk items and the range that the public service has provided to us based on the information we had when that report was drafted. It's still significant, but if you add on over $100 million to that, within provincially mandated balanced budget requirements and also the inability to borrow for operating, it would be even more significant. But I don't want to suggest that because we're balanced that then everything's going to be easy, because it's not.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
All right, Sean from CBC.
Councillor Orlico, who's in your executive policy committee, said during council meeting this afternoon, quote, "We're probably going to have to redo our whole budget," end quote. You don't believe that the decisions that you made in March actually stand now, do you? But the particular program funding, in the face of what's happened, would you acknowledge that many of those decisions will have to change?
I'd say that many of them will have to change, absolutely. They do throughout regular years. Budgets are forecasted projections based on revenues and expenditures. Unlike other levels of government, we have a finance committee that deals with those changes as they do throughout the year in an open and transparent way. You will have seen in previous years when we had unexpected snowfalls, we had to adjust and we had to make decisions in an open and transparent way. And so the fundamentals of budgeting remain the same. What is different is the scale and the uncertainty that we face as a community. And certainly having a balanced budget positions us much better than if we were starting with a over $100 million deficit to begin with. I would agree with Councillor Orlico. There are many decisions that we are going to have to make to adjust our budget going forward, as are every level of government across Canada. Every municipal government, every provincial government, and our federal government are going to have to be making adjustments to their forecasts. They're going to have to be making adjustments. What is unique about municipal government, however, is the level of openness and transparency. And you will have seen in the report that we voted on today a range of the expected financial impact. I have not seen that level of transparency from other levels of government to know what the ranges are. They could exist, and I just haven't seen them. But that's a really important process that we have in our democratic processes here at City Hall.
Assistant Chief Shaw, you talked about looking at transit, and I believe what you said was that you were looking at the spring schedule with an eye to changing to a regular run of the Saturday schedule. Is that? Did I get your words right on that?
Yeah, correct. Exploring a number of options for the spring schedule, which could include a move to an enhanced Saturday service on weekdays, which would be Saturday service with some feeder services added. Okay.
Do you have a timeline on when you might institute those changes?
No. We know that we want to have some discussions over the next few days and start talking about this and stay tuned. But yeah, these are things that we keep talking about this hour by hour, day by day, in terms of the changes that are required for us to be able to support our citizens and make sure that we're making the right decisions. So more to come.
All right, back to Joyanne from the Winnipeg Free Press.
Just to follow up on that transit discussion, I know when we've talked about this before, part of the reason transit's being considered an essential service is to make sure that folks who are in the healthcare system and others who are essential workers can get to work. If we switch to the Saturday enhanced service, I guess, is there any concern that we would be cutting off some ability to commute for those folks?
Great question. That was part of the analysis in terms of what this looks like, and I can tell you that those factors have been put into consideration in and around the feeder routes, and we're going to do our absolute best to make sure that transit continues to support those that are going to work so that others can stay home. We've got grocery store clerks and hospital workers and healthcare professionals taking transit, and many folks that are essential services that still require our service. Transit operators are stepping up and coming to work every day because they are essential, and we need to keep this service going, and we need to make sure that it fits the needs. And we know ridership is down, but we are going to make every effort to make sure that we provide the best service that we can.
Okay, and for my follow-up, I guess, just on the local state of emergency, I believe the mayor indicated in the meeting that doesn't expect to have to enact the powers immediately. I know you listed possibly securing hotels to house vulnerable people, declaring certain regions contaminated, or efforts to combat price gouging. Has there been any of those issues popping up or any action you expect would be needed soon?
Not at this time in terms of us being able to use any powers. We are anecdotally hearing some chatter of individuals hoarding medical supplies. We're in talks with the province in terms of what we need to do. If we use any of our powers, we'll be in consultation with the province of Manitoba. We're with them. We're there to support them. And we're in this together with everyone in Winnipeg and all of Manitobans. We need to take the steps required. We see what's coming. We see what's happening in other provinces, and we need to be ready. Those are the reasons why Council has made this decision. And we will work with the province to make sure that we are supporting the big picture plan so that we can save lives. We're in this to save lives.
All right, Eric from Global.
Hi, so Mayor Bowman, I'm wondering if you could expand a bit on how the city will deal with this financial shortfall. I know there's the ability to pull money from the fiscal stabilization fund as well as retained earnings, but just kind of broad strokes, how will this deal with this crunch?
Well,
from your perspective now.
Sure. For the first priority was the financial relief that was provided today to property homeowners and businesses. That's first and foremost the priority, and that's why today I'm pleased that Council decisively supported the efforts to allow those that are not able to pay their property or business taxes a 3-month reprieve. The other way in which we'll deal with it is we will also, given one of the votes today, the ability for business continuity of council meetings and committee meetings. That's how we're going to deal with it. We're going to ensure that members of council can do their important democratic responsibilities to scrutinize the manner in which revenues and expenditures are being managed, because ultimately council's supreme. And what we're going to do is we're going to allow for that business continuity through electronic meetings over the next 120 days. Want to, in advance, thank our clerks and my council colleagues for their efforts and patience as we transition to be able to do meetings electronically. But that's how we'll manage it. We'll do what we do here at City Hall in a very open and transparent way. We'll get those updates at Finance Committee on a monthly basis. Councillors are also, all members of council are getting weekly briefings from the public service, and they also have the ability to reach out and have dialogue with the public service as well in between those briefings. And we're going to be getting updates in as real time as possible for all members of council. But in terms of how council will ultimately decide, that's something obviously I'm not going to speak for the will of council. Decisions that'll need to be made at a later date, but we'll work collaboratively as we do as a team to make the smartest decisions and hopefully lesser bad decisions like all governments seek to do.
So, sorry, Mayor Bowman, you had said you've been in talks with other big city mayors. Can you expand on that? I mean, what are they dealing with, and how is that comparing to what Winnipeg's been doing so far?
They're all experiencing. The larger cities are to say hemorrhaging funds is an understatement. You'll see in this report some of the implications. Transit is one notable, but we're also not getting revenues for libraries and pools and rec centers and things like that. Our expenditures or our revenues are significantly down. Expenditures are up. It's not the same as it is for businesses or homeowners, and I don't want to say or suggest that it is as bad, because we know it's acutely bad for those right now who are struggling just to pay their rent and to feed their families, and but we've got a responsibility under balanced budget legislation to make sure that we're balancing and we're providing the services that keep a city moving. The other mayors. So we've had regular conversations with the Deputy Prime Minister. Last night we had a conference call, and these are lengthy and they're very candid calls with cabinet ministers. Last night we spoke with Minister McKenna. She's the Minister for Infrastructure and Communities. There was a heavy emphasis on the fact that she's a Minister of Communities and the fact that communities across Canada are hurting right now, and concerns about the liquidity of municipal governments in order to ensure that we can provide that frontline service to the citizens that by and large, to significant numbers live and reside in Canadian cities. And so Canadian cities really are where much of the front line of this COVID battle is happening, and the services that our citizens rely upon, clean, safe drinking water, public safety, officers, in our case, Winnipeg Police Service, Winnipeg Fire and Paramedic Service, technicians at our water and waste facilities, these absolutely cannot be compromised. And we anticipate needing the support of other levels of government. The federal government has been very receptive to that dialogue, and so the big city mayors are increasingly having those discussions with our federal government. And so that's by and large what those discussions are. Is there something more specific you'd like me to answer on that, though?
No, that was a good overview. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Over to Jeff from CTV.
Hi. If you need to go to an enhanced Saturday service on transit, and we obviously know revenue is down, would that require layoffs of drivers and mechanics?
There's no talk of layoffs at this time. I will tell you that with the information that the mayor has spoken about of revenues for all cities coming down, that cities are going to have to start looking at what they can do to be able to protect the essential services. But there's no layoffs today, and these are decisions that are difficult decisions, and there's nothing that I've been made aware of in the near future.
Jeff, if I can just add to that, I mean, something that weighs heavily, certainly on me, is the fact that our public service is there to provide incredibly important services throughout the year and in times of crisis. And many other cities have moved very quickly with substantive layoffs. And as Jay just mentioned, there's been no layoffs to date, and that's something I'm very pleased that hasn't occurred yet.
I know I asked this yesterday, but now the snow has fallen, and look, I think it's done. I'm not sure. Do we have an idea what this could mean for flooding?
You broke up there. I think you asked if the snowfall affected flooding.
Yeah, look, do you have a better idea today now that it's done?
Yeah, anecdotally, I heard something from one of the ministers talking about that the snowfall, and they'll be assessing. I know that our water and waste folks have constant and daily exchanges with the provincial forecasters. I don't believe at this point that it will change significantly, but knock on wood, and let's hope that we have some really good weather and that we don't get a lot more precipitation. But what I'm hearing is that it shouldn't be any dramatic change at this point.
Thanks.
Jonas from City.
I'll pass on this round, guys. Thanks. Cheers.
Okay. Sean from CBC.
Assistant Chief, have you gotten the protocols from the province of Manitoba on safe distancing and sandbagging yet?
Yeah, today we received some more documentation in terms of some options in terms of be able to use social distancing while building sandbag dikes. We're taking a look at those to see how they can be implemented tactically and what that means. Now, we have spoken with the government to be able to, with the provincial government, to make sure that they're in understanding and support that the work of flood fighting is critical and must continue. And we're gonna do our best to align with that. There's been some suggestions that If you're sick, please don't offer to help build sandbag dikes. If you're washing your hands and maintaining as much of a distance as you can, that we can reduce the risk. But the volunteers and members of our community that will be out there over the next few weeks to protect properties in Winnipeg and all over Manitoba are going to be required, and I know they're going to step up.
Mr. Mayor, have you got a sense in your head of when you will be prepared to re-engage in the normal business of city government?
Yep.
Because the councillors voted today to move to an electronic meeting system. That would mean that you would have to read reports and not always be focused on COVID.
The short answer is yes. If you take a look at the motion that was supported today, it does. I believe it contemplated when the schedule would more formally kick off, and essentially in about 2 weeks' time, we get back to business. Our attention, I do expect the priority and the focus will continue to be on COVID-19, but let's also realize that there's a lot of activities that the city needs to, a lot of programs and services the city needs to continue to provide. I mentioned construction as one example. There are report flows that need to get moving so that we don't further compound the devastation to the local economy by not doing our jobs at City Hall. And if we can do that through electronic means, that's going to help a lot of families and a lot of industries out by making sure that business continuity continues. But if you have issues getting those dates, Sean, we can help you out with that. But I believe the timeline is about 2 weeks. There's about a 1 week reprieve next week. There will be meetings and activities that'll be happening not in the public committee meetings the following week with all members of council and their respective directors and committee chairs. And then the committee process would start in about 2 weeks' time, and then an EPC meeting the following week and council the following week. The council meeting is ultimately delayed about a week from what it would have otherwise been pre-COVID.
I'm just trying to determine when we can start to ask you questions about these things because, when we refer to the police pension issue, it's been a week. Yeah. You've got councillors on floor saying that there's real problems with it. There's bad advice to council, and you've got a penalty looming over the city's head that nobody appears to be concerned about, and you say you're busy with COVID, so you can't answer these questions, and you've said that several times. So yep. I'm trying to track forward and say, well, there will be a time when the mayor has read these things and will be able to answer these questions, but I just don't know when.
And you, the one thing I can guarantee is you can keep asking the question. And I know you will, Sean, and that's your job, and I respect that. We'll be able to provide answers when we're in a better position and we've been properly briefed and considered things. I'll keep you posted. And even if you haven't asked, what I can commit to you today is when we're in a position to answer that question, we'll make sure that if I can proactively let you and others in the media have those responses, which you have asked for, we'll provide it to you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, Joyanne, do you have any further questions?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, you mentioned that the sandbagging protocols from the province have come to the city now. What exactly are they recommending you do? Is it instead of the assembly line, these folks are putting down sandbags and then walking between the distance instead of being close to each other at any point, or how exactly is that done?
So just to clarify, they weren't given just to the city. They were provided by the Emergency Measures Organization, and I believe to all municipalities as a frame of reference and some ideas about how we can safely use social distancing. The long and short of it is it just spreads out the spacing between individuals in terms of how they're going to move the sandbags. and provide some reference in terms of what that looks like. If you reach out to the Emergency Measures Organization or other municipalities, I'm sure that they're all in just getting. I think we just received this morning. So, but we have to take a look at it and see how we can implement it. And I know we're going to work with the provincial EMO and make sure that we do things as safe as possible.
And before we move on to Progressive Transit, there was talk about the low-income bus pass that's supposed to start to be implemented this year at Council today. Will the implementation of that pass be delayed at all because of everything else that's going on?
I think the short answer is it likely is being delayed. The intake. What was important today's vote was to allow for information sharing between the province and the city to reduce the red tape that folks that are applying for it need to go through. So if people have provided information and have qualified through the province, we want to be able to access that information so that we can provide the low-income bus pass. And we didn't want to delay the ability to kind of kickstart that intake process. And so that's what today's vote was about.
Is there time for me to ask a follow-up on clarity for that in terms of, so you do expect it's going to be delayed, and if you know by how long?
I would, what we can do is connect you with Winnipeg Transit to see where they're at in terms of the implementation. I know there's a lot of things that are changing in real time right now, and you know, if it is being delayed, obviously we want to see as little disruption as possible for its implementation.
All right, Eric from Global.
I'll pass on this round. Thanks, Felicia.
Okay, Jeff from CTV.
Done.
Sean from CBC.
Jason, it's come to our attention that there are a number of vulnerable people that are using Winnipeg Square as a place to congregate, stay warm, et cetera, et cetera. Are you aware of this, and have you got any plans for that particular location? Because it's partially city, partially private business.
Great question. In the conversations around the skywalk, we took a look at from a sort of a big picture comprehensive plan, and that's why we worked with the business owners and the folks that own those skywalks. We'll take a look and see what we can do to be able to make sure we're protecting vulnerable folks. There's no plan right now today to be able to close anything that the city owns in there. We have accessibility issues in terms of making sure that people can get across. There are still essential workers working in the downtown area, and we want to make sure that that we're in line. This is always about balance and trying to make sure we're making the best decisions. If we have any more information on that, we'll let you know.
Sure, thank you. That's it for me for today.
And Joyanne, are you good as well?
I do have a few more questions, if you could bear with me for a bit. We just talked about one of them. I was going to, because someone brought it up earlier. Someone did point out to me that there appears to be maybe some smaller contractors, smaller trucks with plow attachments doing the snow clearing in Winnipeg today, and I did see that myself as well. Is there a reason for that? I'm just wondering if there was some contractors unavailable, so there's new folks coming in, or if that's the case.
I'm unaware of any changes in contracts or big or small contractors or pieces of equipment. We can take that back and see if there's any differences. I know that the snowfall quickly got everyone engaged to make sure that we did the best to clear our streets as fast as possible. So we could take a look and see if there's any more information there for you.
Okay, thank you. And another question that came up, I know we've moved to have some active transportation dedicated streets opened earlier for certain hours. There was talk of council considering lower speed limits for residential streets as well. I just want to make sure there's no I guess, more chance of a pilot project on that coming or anything like that than there was the past few months when it was just being looked at and coming back to Public Works Committee?
I haven't heard anything in terms of that that possible file at this point. The active transportation that will start up very soon will be assessed for its efficiency and to make sure that it's safe. And then we'll take it day by day to see where we can go to be able to help Winnipeggers make sure that they can practice social distancing and physical distancing.
Yeah, Joanne, I can just add to that and just let you know. I mean, I'm not aware of any. Certainly at the elected official level, there's been no dialogue on that. So I mean, obviously there's reports that are forthcoming, and we'll be dealing with them at that time.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. And then just one more thing on the combined sewer overflow work today that was deferred back to committee, that $17 million project. This one's for Mayor Bowman as well. Are you concerned at all that by delaying some of that work, that could wreak havoc with the timelines of the combined sewer overflow reduction? Or do you kind of agree with some of your colleagues that maybe that's warranted at this point with everything else we're dealing with?
Yeah, I was surprised on the floor, Council, that Councillor Lukes had raised the concerns that she did, just because there certainly was time in the last day to have some of those discussions with some of her council colleagues. But I did support the deferral out of deference to her and a few others on the floor who had raised concerns. They are significant dollars, and so I certainly supported the deferral to the committee so that there could be more time for them to have their questions answered. The concern, candidly, the concern is, could there be additional costs as a result of the delay? We'll be asking those questions at the committees in due course. But out of deference to my council colleagues, I supported the deferral.
Are you concerned that it could wind up being delayed even further than that 1 month pause, though, because of this reconsideration? And meanwhile, there is a strict timeline from the province on getting this work done. Yeah,
no. The short answer is no. I mean, the committee will take a look at the report, and I don't want to get into hypotheticals after the committee has reviewed it. Let's let the committee take the time that council ultimately determined was going to be needed, and we'll go from there. But I didn't get the sense from anybody that there was an effort to delay indefinitely, but rather just to spend some time. There, in fairness to Councillor Lukes and other members of council, there's a lot of information flying at all of us right now in a very compressed timeline. Today we had 3 incredibly important reports that we voted on. Relief for business and property taxpayers, a declaration of state of local emergency, as well as moving to electronic meetings. I mean, these things have never been done before, and the speed at which everyone is working is really impressive. And so, if there wasn't the time before the council meeting to raise these questions, let's get it to the committee, and we'll do our review there. But I'm not getting a sense there was a feeling amongst councillors to delay indefinitely.
Okay, thanks very much.
All right, I think that concludes today's media availability. Thank you, everybody.
Have a safe weekend, everybody.
Yep, you too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Take care, all. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Echo.
The chairperson has disconnected. The conference will now end. Le conférencier a raccroché.